Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I have found in my travels. Today, it is Poetry Thursday, so I wanted to talk about some fun poetry that I've read recently. I want to talk about a poem that is about sleep, of all things. I am referring to Sleep by Keats. I feel like many people have heard the name Keats before, at least when it comes to classic poetry. But for those who don't know, Keats was a British poet who lived in the late 1700s, early 1800s. He lived a pretty short life as he died of consumption or tuberculosis or whatever it was that killed people way too early back then. But he did write a little bit of poetry in between practicing to be a doctor, and a lot of people have regarded him as one of the forerunners of the poetry movement going on in England of the time. One of the primary faces, and a lot of people have appreciated his poetry because of that. He wrote a lot about nature and all sorts of things like that, which you see in some elements of his poetry, which I'll talk about today. So without further ado, let's talk about Keats. I will read the poem and do a brief analysis, and we will move on from there. To Sleep. O soft embalmer of the still midnight, shutting, with careful fingers and benign, our gloom-pleased eyes embowered from the light, enshaded in forgetfulness divine. O soothe the sleep, if so it please thee, close in mist of this thine hymn my willing eyes, or wait the amen ere thy poppy throws around my bed its lulling charities. Then save me, or the passed day will shine upon my pillow, breeding many woes. Save me from curious conscience that still lords its strength for darkness, burrowing like a mole. Turn the key deftly in the oiled wards and seal the hushed casket of my soul. So that was To Sleep by Keats, a very interesting poem. It's clear what he's talking about as you read it. He's doing a sort of ode to sleep. It's in the title right there. It says To Sleep. So I really like how he talks about sleep here. Sort of very, very enjoyable. And to stay awake, to be awake at all, it seems to be unkind and not something that you really want. I like one verse that he says, O soothe the sleep, if so it please thee, close in midst of this thine hymn my willing eyes, or wait the amen. And right there you get him saying like, if it pleases you, let me fall asleep now instead of when I finish this sort of ode that I'm saying to you, which I find a little bit funny. Like you're just gonna pass out right now rather than stay awake until the end of this poem. Another element of this poem that I like is the next verse where it says, Then save me, or the passed day will shine upon my pillow, breeding many woes. Save me from curious conscience, which I happen to like. He's essentially saying that, save me, let me fall asleep, or the next day it will be pretty terrible for me. I'm sure we've all gone without a little bit of sleep. We've stayed up longer than we mean to, and it just feels very bad. We feel gross. It's like I would kill for an extra 2 hours of sleep. So, a very familiar feeling. I especially like the alliteration that takes place. Save me from curious conscience, which is a lot of fun to say, but he's saying like, don't let my mind wander, possibly at night, allow me to fall asleep. It's very easy to see this as like an ode to sleep, but it could be him falling asleep and like him saying like, okay, I would appreciate my mind stop wandering, allow me to fall asleep now instead of staying awake with insomnia or whatever is going on. And then the last element of this poem that I happen to really like is the last line of it. It says, and sealed the hushed casket of my soul, which I think is a pretty powerful line right there. I think he's saying like that falling asleep will like allow your soul to regenerate or renew itself in a way. Like your soul is full and is constantly going everywhere, but when you fall asleep, your soul is like a casket, and you seal it, and it's shut, and you can't absorb anything anymore until the next day when it's renewed and you can go forth and be re-energized. I really like how John Keats says that. Like it's probably one of my favorite lines in poetry now, just because of how grand it sounds. Anyway, those are my thoughts on To Sleep by John Keats. I read a poem by Jorge Luis Borges before, which was also about sleep, which had similar vibes. Although I would say the one by Keats is probably my favorite, just because of the grand gestures and grand notions that Keats instills in his poem. I do recommend that you go out and read it, and I will put a link to it in the description so that you may find it and enjoy it yourself. Comment below what you think of the poem or what you think of my short little review here. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that other people can find out about Keats, this poem, and Poetry Thursday. Let's get more people doing this. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and sleepy travels. Farewell.